first sound is always the gravel, a soft, relentless hush like a tide dragging shells across a shore no map has ever admitted existed. Then the headlights cleave the dim, as if a new morning might be wrung from this road, and the booth's little brass bell, hung where a price placard should be, shivers once, like it has nerves, like it can be afraid. The bell knows before the driver does. The bell always knows. A hand-painted sign dangles at an angle over my window. We take answers, not coins. People laugh when they first see it. Most do, anyway. The nervous laugh of someone who believes the world is still the same as it was 1 mile back. They look for the toll price, pat their cup holder for quarters, tell themselves this is just a detour. And then they look at me. That's when the laughing stops. The blue of my eyes is a little too still. I've been told. A pond under a windless sky. A mirror for whatever a person fears to stare at alone. 5 centuries will do that. Mostly because 5 centuries isn't a number here. Not the way drivers think it is. It's a weight carried in the shoulders. A memory of having forgotten thousands of names and still remembering what their voices did when they said the truth out loud. You want a hook? Here it is, true and clean. I work at a strange toll booth on a road that appears only when a heart stutters between beats. And I have done this for 500 years. And I am so very tired of telling people they can't pass because they don't know what they are. The title promised a booth and a span of centuries. It failed to mention the smell of wet asphalt that never dries, the moths that circle by day as if night has pitched a tent inside the sun, the slow drip of rain from a roof that never leaks because the rain is a memory and the roof is a vow. It failed to mention the way the souls who stop here teach me how to be human, a lesson I keep failing, a lesson I keep holding in my mouth until it dissolves like sugar and cuts like glass. The bell shivers, headlights approach, swallowing and spitting out the thin air. My little heater rattles like bones in a pocket. There's a coffee mug here that never cools past warm, as if my hands refuse to give up on the idea that heat can be contained. The road is a scar stitched across a meadow no bird ever lands in. Miles in either direction. No exits, no signs, nothing but the hush. Intention versus obstacle, that's the shape of every story they bring me, and the shape of mine. What I want is simple, to send them where they must go, and to do no harm I'm not required to do. What stands in my way is simpler still and worse. People are not simple. They arrive with suitcases of almosts and of onlys and brittle stories. They offered themselves when grief was louder than truth. I was a boy once, a husband, a father, a man whose name was Jonah Hart, who believed the world made sense if you paid attention and told the truth. Then a carriage overturned on black ice. Then a breath left me like a panicked horse. Then a hand took mine at a threshold I could not name, and a voice said, "You'll get used to it." And I was shown a window with a bell. A compact car idles up to the booth like a thought that's ashamed to to be spoken. The driver is a young woman with an old woman's stare eyes that have counted ceilings through the night and found none forgiving. Her knuckles are the color of grief. I crack the window. The wind puts a cool hand on my cheek. Evening, I say. It is always evening here. Name, she swallows. Nidhai, full name, I say softly. Her eyes flick toward the horizon, as if it might lend her courage. Nidhai Rao, the clipboard on my desk, painted tin, edges dented. Pages that write themselves in a hand I recognize from my father's grocery lists. Answers without my asking. A life inked in a few lines. Eldest daughter, caretaker. Singer in a voice too soft for microphones. A promise broken to herself the night she took a job she did not want, so her brother could want one he did. Her heart failed at a bus stop while she rehearsed a song for no one. I taste peppermint and dust. What's the toll? She asks, voice almost steady. An answer, I say. One you owe yourself. She grips the wheel tighter. The car smells like cold tea, and a marigold garland gone brittle on the passenger seat. Ask. I have asked a million versions of this question, and each time it is new, because the person in front of me is new. It is not judgment I am handed. It is a question sharp enough to shear what's knotted. When you chose to be everyone's anchor, who did you drown? Her breath catches. The bell trembles once, as if in sympathy. A moth smears itself against the glass, leaves a ghost of its own wings. Nidhai closes her eyes, and the ruin of her sleep deprivation collapses and reforms into something sadder and truer. Myself, she whispers. I drowned myself, and did you do it out of love, I ask, or out of fear that if you let go, no one would know how to swim? She opens her eyes. There's flint there now, a strike of spark in the windless pond. Both, the clipboard warms under my palm. This is enough. The question mattered, the answer mattered more, because it did not pretend to be only one thing. Then hear this, I say, and my voice is my father's and my son's and my own before the ice. There is a road that turns back, a turn you missed when your heart miscounted. If you take it, you'll wake with a soreness in your chest and a song under your tongue and a new rule stitched behind your eyes. No rescue without rope around your own waist. She looks at me like hope has tapped her shoulder and asked to cut in. I can go back. You can, I say, and lift the gate. But remember the rope. She drives on, taillights receding until they are 2 pinprick wounds in the dim. The meadow holds its breath, then lets it go. The booth creaks. The heater sighs. A small part of the ache in my chest loosens, like a knot persuaded by patient fingers. I want to go home. That is my intention, writ in letters large enough to be read from the road that led me here 5 centuries ago. Home is a cottage that never burned, a table with a chipped blue bowl, the laugh of a boy whose legs were always longer in the morning than the night before. My obstacle is that I know the gate opens only one direction for people like me, for them sometimes back, sometimes forward. For me, always onward in place. The next car arrives before the echo of the last has faded. That is how it escalates here. Tenderness followed by test. A white van, paint flaking like it's whispering secrets to the wind. The driver's shadow moves jaggedly across the windshield. When he lowers the window, the smell that comes out is bleach, and something sweet gone wrong. His name is already on the page. Some names arrive with a taste of iron. His is one. Evening, I say. Name. Richard, he says, then adds. Tanner. A reflex. A habit of power. He wears success like armor over shame. And both have sharp edges. What's the toll? He asks, smirking, as if he thinks money will work where nothing human has. An answer, I say, but first, a question you'll hate. He leans back, one hand still on his phone, thumb twitching over a dead screen. Try me. When did you first decide that outcomes mattered more than people? He laughs, a brittle sound. I build things, jobs, tools. Outcomes are how the world improves. Which of your outcomes learned your daughter's middle name? I ask. Which of them called your mother on Wednesdays when you didn't? The smirk falters. For a moment, the man is a boy again, standing in a kitchen where the clock is loud and the bread's gone stale, deciding that if no one will protect him, control will. It's not that simple, he says. It never is, I reply, and the wind presses its cold hand to my jaw. That's why you're here. He meets my eyes for the first time. What he sees there makes his breath stumble. I do not know what my eyes look like to others, only that they return to people the weight they brought here disguised as certainty. What happens if I don't answer? He asks. You idle, I say. Engines die eventually, some longer than others, but the road doesn't move. He looks past me at the gate, at the nowhere beyond. Ask if you could do one thing without proving anything to anyone, I ask. What would you do that could not be measured? He stares, and for a long time the van is a clock that has forgotten numbers. Then he says, not smirking now, not armored, not anything, but a man who once knew the feel of grass behind his knees. I'd sit with my daughter while she paints, and I wouldn't correct her horizon line. The clipboard hums, a sound that lives at the edge of hearing. Like the far end of a shell, I close my eyes. Then your toll is to say her name out loud, so the road can hear who you owe. His lips part around a name that turns him inside out as he speaks it. The road listens. The bell stills. The air is kinder for a breath. Can I go back? He asks, voice small. Yes, I say, but not as the man who left. The horizon line will not be straight. You will not correct it. You will learn the shape of apology, and it will not save you from loss. It will only make the loss honest. He nods. The van rolls forward. The gate drops. The heater rattles again. My hands ache. A moth rests its powdered body on the bell's lip, as if trying to keep it from telling me the next story. The intention and the obstacle remain. I want a door that opens for me. The door has instructions written in a language I once spoke and can't remember. The open loop yawns like a tunnel. Who built this booth? And what do they want me to admit that I haven't yet? The answer is in the questions I ask others. and I have avoided asking myself for 500 years. The road hushes. The bell remembers how to tremble somewhere far off. A storm that never arrives clears its throat. And in the dark glass of the booth window, my reflection looks back like a stranger I've promised not to abandon again. Dawn comes here like a rumor, thin and unconvincing. The light no more than a shade lighter than the dark, and just as untrustworthy. The meadow does not change. It practices stillness, the way monks practice breath. The asphalt has a sheen like a fresh scar. I sweep a leaf that cannot have fallen from any tree, empty a trash bin that fills with notes no one wrote, apologies, lists of birthdays, instructions for how to fold a shirt the way a lost lover did. They slide against my palms like fish desperate to return to a river that has not existed in centuries. The clipboard has turned a page on its own. The first line says, "Today, ask yourself." The words are in a hand that is almost mine. The last time I obeyed that instruction, I spent 3 hours with my forehead against the cool glass and remembered the exact sound my son made the day he found a frog in the well bucket and decided he had met a king. Obedience burns. I put the clipboard face down. A hearse glides up, silent on tires that do not press the gravel. The driver is a woman in a suit too large for her shoulders. She looks like a child trying on a life she does not believe she can keep. The hearse's back windows are blacked out, but the air behind the glass is crowded. Not bodies, presence. The bell gives a tiny, high whine like a kettle left on too long. Morning, I say, and my breath fogs though the temperature never changes. She nods like we had an appointment. I think I took a wrong turn. You did, I say, and also you didn't. She looks at her hands. They're ink-stained and bitten at the nails. My name's Anya, the clipboard, embalmer, violinist, watcher of faces, tender of the quiet. She wanted once to travel and ended up traveling between rooms instead, ushering people into their last clothes, smoothing cowlicks with spit and care, writing 1,000 notes she never sent. She dies in her sleep between shifts, a violin on the chair, and a book she lied about finishing on the floor. She carries with her, in the back of the hearse, the unspoken gratitude of families who could not look and needed someone to do the looking. What's the toll? She asks, straightening her shoulders like it will make the suit fit. An answer, I say, and a song. She blinks. I haven't played in years. Then hum, I say. Humming is what songs do when they fall asleep. She hums, and the air in the booth turns soft, like bread under a towel. The presence in the back of the hearse edges closer to the glass. I ask, when you tended the dead, whose face did you wish was under your hands? Her humming stumbles. My mother, she says roughly. I left the room to answer a call. When I came back, she had gone to a place I couldn't iron the sheets. What would you have said if you'd had 5 more minutes? She closes her eyes. Tears find the corners without drama, without relief. That I forgive her for making me her mirror, and that I am sorry I broke when she asked me to reflect back a person who never learned to look. The presence leans like a wind that comes from inside the car. The bell stills. The clipboard warms. There is a left turn ahead of you on a road that does not believe in left turns, I say. Take it. You will dream of a room with sheets you can iron, and a woman who lets you fold the corners wrong. She nods and pulls forward. The hearse is full of a silence that is no longer empty. I am supposed to ask myself today. I am supposed to pay my own toll. My intention rises like heat. Ask the right question. Pry open the door. My obstacle is cowardice in a good coat. I have become skilled at giving the world exactly what it needs from me, while denying myself the smallest mercy. It would be poetic, wouldn't it, to claim I have refused to turn my questions inward because the task is sacred, because impartiality is holy, the truth is as plain as a spoon. I am afraid that if I ask, I will owe an answer I cannot pay. The next vehicle is not a vehicle. It arrives as a flock of paper cranes, 1,000 small wings throwing shadows like rain. They gather in the shape of a bus, settle into a thing with windows and seats, and a driver who is a boy made of ink. He leans out the paper window, his hair a sentence unfinished. "Hi," he says. "Is this where we cross?" Sometimes I say, "Name, Armin," he says, and the cranes rustle as if approving. The clipboard writes of a school hallway dark after the last bell, of a boy who folded birds until the anger in his stomach turned into flight, of an apartment where voices were thrown like plates and laughter was rationed. He tried once to vanish by being quiet and was punished for his silence. He tried again to be loud and was punished for his noise. He found a middle place in paper and wished it were a country. "What's the toll?" he asks. As a dare he hopes no one takes. An answer, I say, and a promise. He shrugs like promises are clothes that never fit his shoulders. Ask, when you made wings for your anger, where did you expect to land? He reddens. Anywhere not here. Not here is a compass with no north, I say. If you go back, you will need a direction that is not. He glares, then laughs, then glares at the laugh for betraying him. Fine, I want to land where I can make a home that doesn't sound like a storm. And the promise, he looks at the cranes, at the bus they have become to protect him. I'll teach others to fold, he says softly, so their hands have something to do while their hearts wait. The bell, hearing a promise kept in advance, hushes like a soothed child. Back you go, I say. The first thing you will teach is patience, without apology. He grins. The bus shivers into birds again and lifts. The shadow it leaves is lighter than before. The clipboard turns the page. The words there are mine, no ancestor's hand, no other keeper's script. Jonah, it says, then heart, as if my name were news I had been avoiding. Then, what did you abandon when you put on the window? I put my finger to the bell to keep it from sounding the way a heart sounds when it trips. What I want more than anything is to stop abandoning anything. What stands in my way is the suspicion that I am built of doors I closed, and if I open them, wind will take the house. A motorcycle idles up like a wasp that has learned manners. The rider removes their helmet and shakes out hair dyed the color of a bruise healing. Their jacket is patched with words cut out of other clothes. Stay, leave, want, no. Name, I ask. Mercy, they say, and grin as if daring me to comment. The clipboard tells me what Mercy names themselves to survive what their parents called them when they wanted obedience. Their life reads like a map with many erasures. They walk out of a fire and into rain and decide both can be weather. They die on a freeway shoulder, changing a tire for a stranger who drove away before the lug nuts were tight. What's the toll? Mercy asks, fingers tapping a rhythm on their thigh as if impatient with endings. An answer, I say, and a boundary. They tilt their head, ask, who taught you that rescue is love? They snort, no one taught me, no one stayed. I learned to stay for everyone. And the boundary, their mouth goes stubborn. I don't do those. You do now, I say gently. Say it. They glare. Then, with effort that rounds their shoulders and straightens their spine, they say, I can put down a burning building that isn't mine. The bell shivers once, agreeing. The clipboard warms. The road ahead of Mercy turns visible another half-mile. When they've gone, the booth is a ribcage around a breath I have not let slip for centuries. The clipboard's question sits in my lap like a child who will not let me stand up until I answer. What did you abandon when you put on the window? The window is the pane between this booth and the road, between the road and the meadow, between the meadow and a world where barns rot and children grow and ice remembers how to break. I can feel the cold of the carriage wheel. I can smell the iron of blood and the horse's panic. The prayer my wife didn't say because she knew the words would catch in her teeth. I abandoned being known. I put on the window to become function instead of person. What's the toll? I whisper to myself. An answer, the bell says, not in words, but in the way it vibrates. Then ask, I tell the empty road. The clipboard writes, the question is not merciful. Questions rarely are. When you taught others to tell the truth, why did you stop speaking yours? The air in the booth goes thin, as if altitude has found me at sea level. Because my truth is that I want to leave, I say, and my voice shakes the way a tree shakes when the lightning has already passed through. And I believed wanting that would make me cruel, while others still needed me to ask. The heater sighs out a sound like relief. The meadow inhales. The bell grows still. The clipboard warms to the temperature of skin. A line appears beneath my answer. You may not go for wanting. You may go for not pretending. The bell trembles in a new register beyond the gate. At the far edge of the visible road, a low shape moves darker than dark, older than the oldest fear. The boundary buckles a fraction, like a thread pulled too tight. Escalation is not always a louder sound. Sometimes it is a quiet that stops the breath in your nose. Something on the other side has pressed its ear to this scene. It has heard that I have admitted a want. It is patient. It has waited 500 years Storms do not come to the toll road, but they rehearse within sight of it. This morning, the horizon is a rehearsal with conviction, bruise-colored and pulsing. The meadow's stillness has edges today, crisp as a new blade. The bell hangs very still until it doesn't. And when it moves, it doesn't ring, it clicks, like the throat of a creature that has learned the sound of its own cage opening. The first car is a taxi with a city's soot on it. The driver's name is Fatima, and the dashboard holds a lemon like a small sun meant for luck. She has driven people to births, and to meetings where their lives doubled, and to hospitals where their breaths bought new math. She arrives here with the meter off, but the habit of counting still in her wrists. "What's the toll?" she asks, right away, eyes on my eyes instead of the sign. "An answer," I say, as ever, "and one favor." She smiles like someone who has been in 1,000 rooms and survived them by making the person across from her feel less alone. Ask, when you kept your own sorrow in the glove compartment, what did you tell it? She looks at the lemon. "I told it to behave," she says. "I told it I would open the glove compartment when I wasn't working." "And did you?" She laughs once, a sound with splinters in it. "No, the favor," I say. She raises a brow. "If you go back," I tell her, "teach one person to name their sorrow without apologizing for its size." Her eyes shine. "Deal." She goes. The bell quiets. The storm's rehearsal grows louder without gaining distance. At the edge of sight, the dark shape presses again. It is not wind, not weather, not anything the living have named. Old as hunger, as useful, as pitiless. A child arrives next, leading his bicycle like a penance. He has a gap in his front teeth and a scab on his knee, and the posture of someone who has been told by 1,000 grown mouths that he is too much. He is carrying a plastic bag full of marbles and one crooked birthday candle. "Name," I ask, and remember to make my voice the size of his hands. "Leo," he says, chin brave. The clipboard tells me he swallowed a marble once because he wanted to be a planet. He kept the secret until the secret taught him shame. He ran across a street without looking because he was busy making up a word for the color between cloud and light. The car did not stop. "What's the toll?" he asks, already digging in his pocket like a magician. He produces a pebble that is actually a piece of glass, and a broken chalk, and a library card he never returned. "An answer," I say. "No coins." He nods solemn. "Ask, when you decided you were too much," I ask. "What were you just enough of?" He frowns, serious as the moon. "Wishes," he says finally. "I was exactly enough wishes. My chest hurts in the good way." "Keep that," I say. "If you go back, keep being exactly that amount." He nods hard, as if tying the instruction into his own bones. He walks his bicycle forward. The gate lifts for him like it was built to. As he disappears, the shape at the road's lip slides closer, not down the road, but along it, as if the boundary were a rail, and at a hand testing for splinters. The bell's metal is cold against my finger. I have never seen it this close. I have never had to name it out loud. The clipboard writes without my hand. The unfinished. The unfinished life where the living and the dead misremember each other. They are the ache of vows that were made to be broken, and of wounds kept open on purpose because someone learned to harvest attention from the blood they want in, and they use my door to knock. The next visitor is walking. No car, no machine, just a woman with ash in her hair and a ring that has worn a groove in her finger deep as a river. She moves like water does when it wants to forget it was ice. Name, Mira, she says, and the word is a bell of its own. The clipboard shows me hands that knit blankets for strangers and arms that learned to hold grief without making it behave. She loses a child and does not forgive God. Instead, she teaches her rage to sing in tune with her love. She dies folding laundry, an act so ordinary it becomes a hymn. What's the toll? She asks, wiping her palms on her skirt. An answer, I say, and a refusal. She lifts her chin. Ask when you punished yourself for surviving. Who did you think you were saving? Her mouth twists. The child, she says, as if my suffering could pay her passage. And the refusal. She looks past me to the meadow. I refuse to keep buying tickets to a ferry that only goes in circles. The bell relaxes. The unfinished hovers, irritated. Mira's road clears. And as she passes, she reaches out and touches the booth's wood, one human hand on a surface that has learned to pretend it isn't starving for such touch. Warmth runs up my arm like a cure. By mid-afternoon, that isn't. The shape on the horizon has become edges. Antlers, maybe, or spines, or the suggestion of a mouth that never learned to close. The boundaries seem sings like a wire in wind. The bell is hot. The heater has gone quiet, as if unwilling to compete. A man arrives with no vehicle and too many shadows. He wears shame like smoke and righteousness like cologne. His name is carved into the clipboard as if by a hand that disliked him while loving him. He is a priest who learned to mistake power for mercy and mercy for permission. He comes with a congregation of thoughts that won't stop kneeling. What's the toll? He asks, voice oiled. An answer, I say, and a confession that is not performance. He smiles. Ask when you forgave others for what hurt you. Who did you not forgive so you could keep feeling holy? His smile cracks. Myself, he says, and the word is a stone that finally hits the bottom of the well. Then begin there, I say. Forgiveness is not absolution. It is ending the story where suffering is the only proof of love. He weeps without drama. The unfinished flares, frustrated. It feeds on performance. It starves when honesty is quiet and plain. The boundary calms, a notch. I am shaking. The question I answered for myself has woken something that wants to be fed or thrown out. Dusk, which as always threatens more dark. The bell hums and then abruptly ceases. In the sudden silence, a fifth presence arrives, not in a car, not on foot, not as paper or birds or boy, but as a woman with a red scarf and a mouth like the edge of a promise. Her face is older than mine and younger than my memory of her. The clipboard writes and then stops, as if it is shy. "Hello, Jonah," she says. My hands forget their shapes. "Eliza," I say, and the name is the sound of a house remembering laughter. She died 6 winters after I did. I was here when she crossed and did not know it. Another keeper lifted the gate for her while I learned how to stop pounding on mine. I have not seen her since. She wears the red scarf I bought her the year hay was short, but we were not. She steps closer to the window, but does not touch it. "What's the toll?" she asks, because she remembers how I have to do this. "An answer," I say, and my voice is a rope fraying. "Ask me." She tilts her head. The meadow breathes. The unfinished crouches, listening. "When you chose to stand between, whom did you think you were protecting from whom?" I look at her and see 1,000 answers try to climb out of me. I choose one. "Everyone from me," I say. "The man who wanted to leave." "And what if," she says, as gentle as the first drop of rain after drought. "Leaving wasn't leaving love, but going where love needed you to go to exist at all." The booth sways. The bell forgets its job. The unfinished surges, furious, because this is not a performance. This is a marriage speaking across a scene. I put my palm against the glass. Eliza mirrors it without touching. Heat crosses anyway. "I want home," I say. Not the cottage, not the blue bowl, not the frog king in the well. Home is the place where someone says my name like it is a door and not a wall. Her eyes shine like water that has remembered it is a mirror. "Then stop pretending the wall is saving anyone," she says. "Ask your last question." "To whom?" She nods at the horizon, where the unfinished shudders like a forest deciding to walk. "To that. Ask what it wants." I have never done this. I have never put my voice on the seam and said, "Speak." But I do, because Eliza asked, and because fear is not a god. "What do you want?" I call to the shape that is not a shape. It answers not in words, but in hunger. The booth's nails scream. The road's paint peels itself back. A mouth opens that is not a mouth, and from it pours everything people refuse to finish. Unsent letters, unkept promises, grief that was polished and put on a shelf instead of buried in clean dirt. It wants through. It wants the booth because the booth has been the seam's honesty. It wants me because I have admitted wanting. Eliza's voice in my ear like a blessing. Make a boundary that is not a wall. How, I ask, and the question is winded. Make a door, she says simply. Make it require a hand from each side. I put both palms on the glass. The bell begins to ring, finally, and it rings not like a warning, but like a wedding. I can't stop shaking. The unfinished howls with a noise that has broken 1,000 windows and made 1,000 men think they were righteous for ignoring their own soft parts. Then here is my toll, I say into the seam. No one crosses without asking, and no one asks without listening, and no door opens without 2 hands. The shape hits the new rule like a bird hits clean glass. It stuns itself. It gathers and tries again. Eliza's eyes are on me, steady as bread. I think of Nidhi's rope, of Richard's horizon, of Mercy's building, of Leo's wishes, of Mira's refusal, of Fatima's lemon. I think of my boy and the frog in the bucket. I think of my own voice saying I want to leave. The booth's wood swells with the damp of my fear and the heat of my love. The unfinished slams and rakes and slams again. The bell rings like a promise I am making to a god I am not sure exists. The door holds, but it will not forever. It is made of my admission, of my first honest want in 5 centuries, and it needs another hand. Eliza smiles. I have always been your other hand, she says, but I cannot be the one to touch this. You are not here to be married to absence. Call the living. Tell, ask, she says. You are good at it. Every question is a lighthouse, if asked with enough mercy. That is what 500 years at a window has taught me. The unfinished rages at the edge of sight, its spines tasting the seam for weaknesses, as if the world were a fruit too green to eat that it will swallow anyway. The booth is a ship's wheel in my hands. I have to call someone whose hands are still warm with pulse, someone mid-breath, between errands, unaware that a road they do not believe in has a place for them today. The bell knows. Of course it does. It has been learning the weight of voices longer than I have. It begins to ring in a pattern I recognize only by feeling. A braid of 3 notes that, when laid end to end, sound like the way longing sits down and says, "Here I am." The meadow leans toward the sound. The heater purrs as if in approval. Headlights. A car that is mostly rust and hope pulls up knee-jerk haltingly, as if embarrassed to be seen. The driver is a woman with paint under her fingernails and a smudge of blue on her cheekbone that refuses to be art. In the back seat is a canvas that thinks it will never be finished. The air around her is full of late nights and neighbors who bang on walls, and a small, perfect dog who believes himself a philosopher. Name, I ask, voice gentle into the frayed cloth of her day. Rhea, she says, wary. I don't know how I got here. You didn't, I say. You were asked. She looks as if the idea that she could be wanted by a place is so unfamiliar it might bite. What is this? A toll booth, I say, which is true and not enough. What's the thing you haven't finished? Because it scares you to know who you are when it's done. She flinches. My father's portrait, she says, and her lip finds the edge of a tremble. He died last year. We weren't, she swallows. If I finish it, I'm afraid I won't have any more reasons to talk to him. The clipboard hums. The unfinished heaves itself like a sea. I nod. Rhea, I say, this place needs a hand. Something old is trying to cross without listening. It feeds on the unfinished. I built a door out of a rule. It needs 2 hands to work. She stares. She should drive away. She should be late to something small and kind. Instead, she nods, perhaps because she is an artist and artists know that the unseen is only shy, not imaginary. What do I do? Answer me, I say, and then listen. She squares her shoulders. Ask, when you do not finish, who are you protecting? She lets out a breath that must have been waiting since childhood. I'm protecting the version of me that still believes he'll come through the door, she says. I'm protecting the girl who can keep bargaining with time. And if you finish, I have to grieve, she says. I have to let my hands be empty after. Put your hand on the glass, I say, and she does without asking why. Her palm is warm and paint-slicked. The bell changes pitch. The unfinished screeches, furious to feel a living pulse laid against a rule. The door holds differently now, not with resistance, but with attention. You hear that? I ask. She nods, eyes wide. It sounds like the way I talk to my dog when he's scared. Like someone who loves you telling you they're not going anywhere. That, I say, is the sound the seam makes when listened to. It stops being a threat. It starts being a boundary. We stand like that, two hands, two worlds, while the unfinished spends itself against the sound of being heard. It howls less like hunger and more like a child at the end of a tantrum, realizing the room did not empty when they screamed. Eliza stands to the side, scarf a red note inside the gray. Her smile is a stitch in a wound that has decided to close. Ria's arm starts to shake. She laughs, a little wildly. Is this real? It is true, I say. Sometimes that is better. Will I remember? In your hands, I say. Not in your head. They'll paint like someone who knows finishing is a kind of love. She cries then. The soft, astonished tears of someone who didn't know relief. Could be an ache. The unfinished quiets. It does not leave, it changes. It settles along the seam-like fog that has decided to be a lake. It will not cross without hands. It will wait to be heard, or it will stay hungry forever, and learn that hunger can be company instead of weapon. I lower my hand. Ria lowers hers. The glass is warm. The bell sighs. Eliza steps closer. What's the toll? Ria asks, unexpected. Finish your father's portrait, I say, and when you do, leave a brushstroke wrong on purpose, and tell him that's where he can find you when you talk to him next. She nods. She starts the car. The rust looks almost gold. Before she goes, she says, "What's your name?" It has been a long time since anyone asked. Names and duties are often mistaken for each other. Jonah, I say. Jonah Hart. Thank you, Jonah Hart, she says, like a benediction. And the door she drives through is a kind of sunrise. When she is gone, Eliza and I face each other through the glass. The meadow tilts its ear toward us. The heater hums a lullaby it learned from a farmhouse long dead. Is it over? I ask. No, she says. And yes, the unfinished will always want. But now it has to ask. And you? She looks at me with a love that has never needed proof. You told the truth. Doors open for that. I can leave. The words are a child at the door of a school on the first day. Backpack too big, knees brave. You can, she says, but not the way you think. Home isn't backward. It's wherever your name is said right. The booth, hearing its own obsolescence, creaks like an old friend who would rather be thanked than mourned. The bell tilts as if curious what being quiet feels like. The seam smooths. no longer raw. The clipboard turns a page. There is one instruction written on it, in a hand that is not mine, and not any keeper's I have ever known, and entirely familiar. Close up. Take what matters. Leave what doesn't. Knock when you're ready. I look around. What matters is small and stubborn. The bell, because it learned to sing when asked. The mug, because heat has a right to be carried. The red scarf Eliza unknots from her neck and leaves on the hook like a road back to laughter. The tin of moth dust at the window sill, because even gentleness leaves a residue that glows if you hold it to the light. What's left behind is what was never mine. The window that kept me safe and lonely, the heater's complaint, the paint that hid the dents, the chair shaped to my fear. The unfinished waits, not at the horizon now, but along the seam like a chorus, humming a song. It is learning the harmony too. The road quiets like a cathedral after the last congregant has gone. I step out of the booth. The air is the same temperature it has always been, and for the first time, it feels different. Eliza steps back, clearing a space between us and in front of us and around us. She nods at the place on the road where Ria's hand warmed the glass. Knock, she says. I raise my hand and knock on the air where the window used to be. The sound is not a sound. It is a feeling like a hand taking mine at a threshold I once could not name. The door opens. It is made of nothing I can describe, and everything I have waited for. It does not lead to the cottage. It does not lead to a heaven with tidy hedges. It opens onto a room with a table and a chipped blue bowl, and a laugh like a boy's, and a woman's voice, saying my name like a door that has learned to love being walked through. I turn to the booth. Thank you, I say to it, because gratitude is a ritual that teaches the mouth how to be a home. The bell lifts itself off its hook and tucks into my pocket like a bird that has chosen a nest. The heater gives one last rattling sigh and then settles as if relieved of duty. The meadow lifts its face into a wind that is finally allowed to change direction. Ready? Eliza asks. Yes, I say, and the yes is bigger than the road and smaller than the space between my heartbeats. The door is open. The unfinished is no longer a threat at the edge, but a choir in the corner. The booth is a story that tells itself when needed and sleeps when not. I take a step, and the step is a homecoming that does not undo the years, but uses them to build a floor that does not creak. Home is not the cottage, but there is a cottage in it. 4 windows, one crooked, a fireplace that sighs like an old dog settling. The blue bowl sits in the center of a table that has learned to host both feast and hunger without shame. My boy is a man and a boy both, because time here is just a name for where tenderness goes to practice. He looks up from whittling a boat the size of his palm and grins, gap-toothed, as if a frog once crowned him, and he never gave the crown back. Pa, he says, and that is the whole cathedral. Eliza is beside me. She sets the red scarf on a chair back, and it becomes the room's heartbeat. slow and steady. We move like people who have earned the right to be clumsy. I put my hand on the table. The wood recognizes me. What is this place? I ask, though I know. Eliza's smile is a window thrown open in spring. It's where finished things go to become beginnings, she says. Call it rest. Call it next. I sit. The chair holds me like I am not a problem to be solved. The boy man offers me the boat. It floats, he says seriously, but only if you put it down. I laugh, and the laugh is a cough and a sob and a bell. I have been holding everything for 500 years. I put down the boat. It floats on the surface of a bowl of water that has been here since before we named it. At the edge of the room is a door that is not a door. I can feel the seam there, not as threat, but as invitation. The unfinished hum is faint, like bees in clover. Will they be all right? I ask, thinking of Nidhai and Richard and Mercy and Leo and Mira and Fatima and Anya and Armin and Ria and 10,000 more. They will be themselves, Eliza says. Which is the only all right that lasts? What of the booths? It will be where a boundary is needed, she answers. But now there will be doors more often than walls. You taught the seam to ask. You taught it to listen. It will learn, the boy man Thomas, because of course that is his name, leans his head on my shoulder. Do you have to go back? He asks. I don't have to, I say, and warmth fills the shape of my answer. I might want to visit. He nods as if I have said something wise. The red scarf watches us, a thread that has crossed a gap and holds. We eat bread that tastes like rain, and apples that taste like laughter, and salt that tastes like tears we didn't hide. I sleep on a mattress stuffed with grass that never turns to mold. I wake to find the bell from the booth snoozing beside the blue bowl like a cat. There is a door knock that is also a feeling of someone choosing to ask instead of force. I rise. At the seam stands Ria, not bodily, but hand first, reaching to test the rule she helped make. On her side, I see a studio, paint drying, a portrait nearly done. On mine, a room that is the taste of forgiveness when it finally stops needing to be sweet. Jonah, she says, unsure. I'm here, I say. She laughs, relieved and bewildered. I finished it, she says. I left the wrong stroke. I told him that's where to find me. I thought, this is ridiculous. I thought maybe I could show you. Or thank you. I put my hand where hers meets the seam. The rule opens because we are both asking and both listening. She sees a man in a cottage and knows he is exactly as old as he is supposed to be. I see a woman in a studio and know her father is listening from the wrong brushstroke and nodding at the horizon line he will not correct. Thank you, she says. You did it, I say. She pulls her hand back. The door closes like an eyelid. We are not done, not ever. The unfinished lives at the edge like weather lives at the edge. A thing to prepare for, to respect, to sing over when it bangs on the windows. I will sit at this table and knock when someone's question needs both hands. I will walk with Eliza by a river that remembers us. I will teach Thomas how to fold boats that float only when put down. in this place is a different shade of kind. Stars don't prick, they breathe. The bell rings sometimes without being touched, a reminder to look up and be glad I can. The red scarf keeps the draft from the door. The blue bowl is always a little chipped and always enough. The day of the true test feels like every other day until it doesn't. Eliza and Thomas are in the garden teaching beans to climb a twine ladder. I am mending a chair leg that learned to complain in the night. The bell gives a sound that is not the booth's bell and not the cottage's bell, but the seam calling to its keeper. I look up, and the door that isn't has become a tension shaped like a threshold. On the far side stands a man whose eyes know how to make a room feel like an invoice. He wears grief like an unreturned favor, and anger like a shirt with the tag still on. He is holding a child's hand so tightly the child's knuckles are white. The child stares at me with a look I recognize from my own face in a window 5 centuries ago. A plea disguised as defiance. "Please," the man says, without introducing himself. They took her. They said she can't pass. They said she hasn't paid. She's 8. Behind them, I sense a booth that isn't mine. A keeper who learned to love a wall. The unfinished prowls around that world like a rumor that makes people cruel. The child does not cry. She has taught her tears to stand at attention until dismissed. "What is your name?" I ask the man. "Samir," he says, and the child tugs. "This is Maya. May I speak to Maya?" He nods and lets go of her hand with a reluctance that is both devotion and fear. "Maya," I say, crouching, because words come out softer when your knees know the ground. "Do you know where you are?" She looks around with frank disgust. "Between," she says, "like when you have to sit on the stairs while grown-ups decide if you're in trouble." "Yes," I say, "like that." She juts her chin. "I'm not in trouble." "I know," I say. "What did they ask you?" "They asked if I was sorry," she says, and rolls her eyes with 8-year-old precision. "I didn't do anything. My brother ran into the street. I pulled him back. The car hit me. I'm not sorry I pulled him back. I'm mad I got hit. Anger has been a language of justice longer than most languages have had alphabets." "I hear you," I say. "Would you like to come through?" "Yes," she says, then bites her lip. "Can my dad?" "Not yet," I say gently. "But he can put his hand on the door and listen while you ask." Samir's eyes are red around the edges. He presses his palm to the seam. Eliza comes to stand beside me, and Thomas behind her, and we are a chorus of hands. The unfinished gathers, curious. The booth that isn't bristles, offended by process that doesn't involve shame. "Maya," I say, "what's the thing you want to tell the world that you didn't get time to say?" She scowls, thinking. "I want to say," she begins, words tripping over each other in the rush to be first, "that I'm mad I died, and I'm glad my brother didn't, and I don't want grown-ups to make my mad into sad, because it makes them feel better." The seam hums, pleased. "And your toll," I say, "is to let both be true at once." She nods like I've handed her a sword. "I can do that." "Then ask," I say. "Say, please open." She puts her small palm against the seam where her father's hand already rests. "Please open," she says, and in her voice is all the permission the world ever needed to be kinder. The door opens. It opens because there are two hands, and because there is a truth that did not dress up as anything else, and because a rule is a kindness when it protects tenderness from force. Samir sobs, the kind that empties a man without making him small. He cannot follow, and he knows it, and he does not rage against it. He listens. Eliza holds his shoulder across the seam as if physics were a suggestion. Maya steps in. The room brightens the way rooms do when children figure out they are wanted. Thomas offers her the boat. "It floats," he says solemnly, "but only if you put it down." She grins. She puts it down. It floats. Samir's palm stays on the seam. "What about me?" he asks, broken open. "You will go back," I say, "and you will be mad and sad at the same time, and you will not translate one into the other to make other people comfortable. You will make a small shrine on a shelf with a wrong brush stroke, and you will say her name when you dust." He nods, weeping. "Thank you," he says, and the words taste like iron and relief when he leaves, when Maya has been shown where the best cookies hide, when Eliza has braided the red scarf through a chair rung, as if anchoring our room to the seam. I sit at the table and let everything shake. The resolution is not tidy, it is right. My intention: send the living back when they still have time. Ease the crossing when they do not. Keep the seam honest. Find a way to be human again. Has found its obstacle, wrestled it, and put down the part of the fight that was with myself. The unfinished is still there, and always will be. But now it sings when asked and waits, when told and understands that doors deserve two hands. Later, when the stars breathe and the room smells like apples again, I ask Eliza, "What am I now, if not a keeper behind a window?" She leans her head against mine. "You are a man who asks," she says, "and a man who listens, and a man who goes home." The bell purrs. The blue bowl holds a little water, and the floating boat, and the glow of candlelight that moves with our breaths. I have worked at a strange toll booth for 500 years. I will work at a stranger boundary now, the one between mercy and truth, which turns out not to be a boundary at all when held with both hands, which turns out not to be a boundary at all when held